Shalom Israel. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, all honor, and glory to Yahweh by Shem El Shai, by Shem Kakadash, the born the apostles and elders of Great Millstone teachings this truth. Peace and blessings to whole elect Israel and Shalom. Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father in ancient Hebrew. By Shem is the name. Yahweh Shai is the name of the begotten Son. Back on lesson, and today you're going to go into a situation that's happening over there in China, which you get right here. It says, Zero freedom, desperate Chinese residents brawl over food and strip shelves as 21 million people plunge into world's strictest lockdown. And this is what's coming to America. So you're seeing those heavy restrictions, those lockdowns that are being put into place, and you're seeing many people trying to prepare for those lockdowns, stocking up food, and that's going to lead to, as you see right here, a ton of fights breaking out, which we'll read later on in this article. Which I believe is also kind of happened a few months back, because there's a similar situation happened. I believe there was a pestilence going on over there, and they put this place into lockdown, and people couldn't leave their hotels, their rooms, their apartments, for however so many days. And they also had robot dogs patrolling the streets to make sure everybody was in their household, weren't leaving. But hey, this is what's coming to America, man. Those lockdowns, those restrictions. I see right here, the world's strictest lockdown. So imagine what's coming to America, man. Because this is where the main judgment will take place. Let's continue on. The desperate Chinese residents, which was just read, but the city of Chengdu, home to 21 million people, has been locked down after just 157 new infections were recorded as Beijing continues to pursue its zero-19 policy. I see many people, rushing to get the food, to stock up on things, because, like I said earlier, there was a kind of a similar situation that happened, and you had tons of people rushing to stock up on food and preparing for a long lockdown. But the desperate Chinese residents clambering over each other to grab supplies in Chengdu. So hey, imagine what's coming to America. I mean, look at this. This leads to a lot of people fighting amongst each other, killing each other over lack of food. So local swarm stores strip shelves and braced for the worst as the city locked down. Look at that. It's just literal biblical prophecy, man. The store shelves being cleaned out, and once again, this is coming to America, man. So you're seeing this happening all over the world, but it's going to hit America the hardest. Oh, it's like all the photos we got. Okay. See if we get a little bit more meat from this article, and then we'll jump to the scriptures. It's going to be a short lesson. The shocking images shared by What's on Weibo showed panicked residents scrambling for supplies in supermarkets, with scuffles breaking out over the last scraps of meat and rice. And the scripts go into literally how people will be fighting amongst each other, breaking to their homes, for the lack of food, which ultimately going to build up and get even worse. So cars were seen stuffed with meat, vegetables, and eggs as local swarm stores stripped shelves and braced for the worst. The one resident said everyone was crazily stocking up on goods because of what happened in Shanghai. And this is the recent situation I was speaking about. Back Shai, came back to me here at Shanghai, China. You had a lockdown that happened over there, and people were scrambling to get as much things as they could, so they are prepared in the midst of that lockdown. Which I believe went on for like a few months, if not a few weeks. So when it was hit by when it was hit by food shortages during its lockdown, which I believe made like two lessons going to that situation that happened, and you see it's happening in many other locations. Was the 25-year-old had been habitually stocking up before Chengdu's latest measures were announced. So you can see those restrictions that you see that they're putting in place to basically establish curfews and to where it says into the world's strictest lockdown. And very soon it's going to come at a price in order to leave your home, in order to go out and buy things. It's how these devils are going to push you into a corner. They're going to apply that pressure, man. When you see lack of food, when you see lack of water, people are going to flock to any solution that they can find. Also, going to their neighbors' homes, breaking in, taking their food, killing them. which can lead to these levels establishing those martial law, more stricter lockdowns, curfews, and all that. And to be able to live a so-called normal life, you're gonna need to have a certain something. If you know what I'm talking about. But the second Ezra 15:16 through the 19th verse says, "For there to be sedition among men, invading one another, they should not regard their kings nor princes." And going back to that situation that happened in Shanghai, China, you had people, at their apartments, getting pots and pans, and smashing them together, crying out, wanting to leave their apartments. So you're seeing a lot of people get fed up with these things, which is ultimately going to lead to these devils bringing that hammer down. Verse 17, "A man shall desire to go into a city and should not be able to go into those lockdowns, them shutting this place down to where you're not able to enter a city without having a certain something, showing proof of verification. You be able to travel. You need to have a certain something. You can see what I'm going at." Verse 18 says, "For because of their pride, the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid." So you see many people may not have been able to go to a supermarket because of all the traffic, because all the food was gone. You're just going to lead to a lot of people, taking, what's what I'm looking for lack of better words, crazy like measures, in order to feed their families, their kids, But it says, "For because of the pride of the cities shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid." Main point right here, verse 19 says, "A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their good because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation." So coming in these end times, you're going to see a heavy famine being pushed, which you're already seeing on a little over now. Certain famines are starting to brew. I see over here in China, things that are going on over here with the lockdowns they're putting in place. Many people are fighting amongst each other, scrambling to get as much food as they can. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their house with the sword and spoil their goods because of lack of bread and for great tribulation, which is only going to pick up and get worse. As keeps going to Matthew 24:8, "All these are the beginning of sorrows." But Isaiah 10:1 to go into those restrictions. So, "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed." Those draconian like laws and measures that they're implementing and pushing out, in order to have full control over you. Which the word draconian goes into harsh. So those super harsh and strict laws that they can put in place, man, to where you're not gonna be able to leave your home, to where they're gonna have a curfew, to where they're gonna establish things and implement certain things, to where you're gonna need to have a certain something to be able to go out and live a so-called normal life, for you to be able to go to your job, in order to buy things, to travel. Reason one more time, so "Woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that write grievousness which they have prescribed." Go into those restrictions that they're in place, and ultimately push you into a corner to where you're forced to rely upon them. This is a little example of what's to come over here in America, because people like to think that things are going to go back to normal, go back to the way it once was, that nothing is going to touch America, which you're already seeing this place going downhill. It's on the downslope, for lack of better words, if that's a saying. It's on the downward spiral, for lack of better words. America is literally on its last legs. You're seeing this place crumbling before our very eyes. You're seeing these major end-time signs, these end-time prophecies that will take place before Yahweh shall make his return. You're seeing things happening all over the world, and what's especially to come to America, which, you saw the first lockdown, what happened with that and the way that people reacted. Imagine when it comes once again, going to mentioning how people are going to need to have a certain something in order to go back to a so-called normal living in life, and that's ultimately how they're going to, apply that pressure. When there's a lack of food, when there's a lack of water, people are going to seek for a solution in order to solve their problem, in order to, put food in their stomach, to feed their children, to protect their family, But it says, 2nd Ezra 16:18, it's the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine, which you are seeing now. You're seeing famines starting to brew. There's even certain articles going to how there's, biblical famines, happening. now, and great death, the beginning of wars, and the power shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? And we're in some very scary and evil times, times that we have never seen before in history, going back to the book of Matthew, 24th chapter, and the 21st verse. How we're heading some times as, or, like no other. Read it from the top one more time. The beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, which seem wars, rumors of wars, seeing small little fights breaking out, commotions. These are end-time signs. And the power shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? It also goes to show that how Hashem tries sending these plagues and these pestilences, upon this earth, man, upon everyone, man, except for his elect, especially in the midst of these times to come. When it's only going to pick up and get even worse, the Lord's going to have his elects back. Basically what I went into in one of my latest lessons, going to the mass judgment that Yahweh is bringing out upon this place, man. All those plagues, those pestilences that he's sending out upon this place, showing we're nearing the end of the devil's kingdom, and that this place is about to be destroyed, man, and a lot of people in it. So it's important to fear Yahweh Shemashah, because you don't want to be, caught up in this mess, man. But Yahweh Shemashah is going to find ways for his elect to eat food, to drink water when they're thirsty. The Lord has his elects back and will protect them in these times to come, man. Because, it's finna get crazy out here, man. You're seeing things going on here in China. It's also going back to, things that happened over there in Shanghai, China. So it's happening, multiple times already, man. It's only a matter of time till it hits America, and it's finna be bad, man. But let's get a second. Ezra 6:22, the main point. Saying, suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. So you're seeing those shelves being cleaned out. The stores not having as much product as they used to, especially over here in America, man. But now you're starting to see, the gas prices starting to, settle down, kind of, go a little bit low before or than what it was already. As it's going to, when they shall think themselves to be in good case, then your evil shall continue to, go upon earth. Let's actually get that real quick. I don't want to butcher it. They shall think themselves to be in good case. Because once again, people think that America is going to, have a bounce back, that nothing's going to touch America, that things are going to go back to normal. It's only going to get worse. 2nd Ezra 6:21, which I think I could have got earlier, I think. Okay. But it says, behold, victuals shall be so good, cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. Just because you see the things happening all around the world, and think that it's not going to touch America, and nothing's going to happen, hey, you're dead wrong, man. It's going to hit America the hardest too, man. But it says, behold, victuals shall be so good, cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case, and even then shall evils go upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. A lot of people will be left without answers, having all sorts of questions, but hey, it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late. Because there are many people trying to seek the prophets, the men of the Lord, for this truth and knowledge and understanding. But like I said, it's going to be too late. So we're warning you now, so while we're still within this grace period, you have time to, repent and to seek the Lord. But many people are still taking that for granted, and guess what? You'll be left behind. So these last few scripts I got, it's got Isaiah 19:2. And I'll set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and every one against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. Which is, in the modern day Egyptians are, Esau, Edom, the so-called white men today. Mentioned in the book of Revelation how America is spiritually, Sodom and Egypt. Esau, Edom is the modern day Egyptians. And I'll set the Egyptians against the Egyptians, and they shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. Now, going back to that point I was trying to make before I went into all that, going to how you're already seeing the division amongst the people in America, and how this place is pretty much a divide already, which you had recently. You had Biden, come out and basically attack the Trump supporters or whatever the case was, which I don't really look too much into it, but he got a ton of backlash for that, But you're seeing, the division, growing worse and even worse, which is a terrible sign for a kingdom, a nation, is when you have really no control over your people, when they're starting to get divided and fighting amongst each other, which is also where you're going to see these devils bring that hammer down, open the type of reaction that they want in order to establish that order out of chaos, as you see what they're doing. But to push that point across, you see many people, fighting amongst each other over the lack of food. For example, Black Friday. You know how people are, how crazy they are when it's Black Friday, man. Lining up at the doors. When people go to the door to, unlock it, what people do, they flock in. They run in and, start stumbling on each other, fighting each other to get that flat screen TV or whatever they want. Imagine when this is food, water, and there is not a bunch of it, man. When there's a lack of it, you see people killing each other over it, man. When people are hungry, they're not in their right mind. The only thing on the mind is just, food. I'm hungry. Especially when they have a family to take care of. When they have kids. As we just read earlier, it's what's coming. It says, a man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their house with the sword and spoil their goods because of lack of bread and for great tribulation. And that's why you want to be on the good side of Yahweh Shemashai, so you are protected in these times to come. Because once again, this is what's coming to America, which is kind of the main point of the lesson. This is what's coming to Babylon the Great. And if you're not under the hedge or the protection of Yahweh Shemashai, you are through. Nothing will protect nor save you other than through Yahweh Shai, man. There's no getting around these plagues, these pestilence that Yahweh Shai sent upon this earth, unless He is dealing with you, man. So we continue to rehearse the righteous acts, applying it to the best of our ability. Today we fear the Lord, man, and we don't want to be left behind in all this mess, man. This destruction and the death that the Lord's about to bring, man. Matthew 24 and 21 through 22. To go into how we're hearing some times that had never been seen before in history, showing you how bad this judgment that the Lord is bringing is going to be, man. But for then shall be great tribulation, since it was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall it be. Verse 22, and except those days shall be shortened, no flesh shall be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. So Yahweh is hastening those days for His elect. So we're seeing these days flying by. And I made a lesson going into, is one article that came out how the earth is spinning, faster than normal, man. That's a little prophecy playing out before our eyes, man. But you see right there, for then shall be great tribulation, as was not since the beginning of the world to the time, no, nor ever shall be. So, going back to that point once again, we're in some times that have never been seen before in history, showing you how bad this judgment is really going to be. And as mentioned earlier, you don't want to be on the receiving end of that judgment, man. You don't want that smoke. But see, second Ezra 15 and 49 says, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, which are seeing tons and tons of pestilence that Yahweh is bringing out, which definitely recommend watching that lesson I went into, going to those judgments, those plagues that Yahweh sent out upon this place. Lord's fed up, man. He's not going to hold His peace any longer, as it's going to. But it says, read one more time on the top. I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. So you're seeing these plagues, you're seeing the pestilence, you're seeing the judgment that the Lord is bringing out, man. Because once again, it says, desperate Chinese residents brawl over food and strip shelves. That's 21 million, man. So imagine all the food that is there that has been taken away, and you're going to have, other residents that don't have food, What has happened? Okay, Slovakia. You see a ton of fights breaking out, people killing each other, and once again, this is what's coming to America, and it's going to be even worse, man. Let's see, I have 2 more scriptures, and we'll close it over here. 2 Ezra 9 and 3 says, therefore, when there should be seen earthquakes and uproars of the people in the world, then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that before thee, even from the beginning, showing you were near the end. And see at 1 Thessalonians 5 and 3, which I showed out earlier, to go and you also push that point across, how you have people making it seem like that America is going to rebound and go back to normal, that nothing's going to touch America. Well, things are, matter of fact, going to go the opposite of what you think. Destruction, death, is coming, which you're about to see over here. 1 Thessalonians 5:3 said, "For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape." You're not escaping the judgment that's coming. There's no peace coming to this place other than destruction, man. Then after the destruction, as taking place, then peace will come, in the kingdom. But, these things need to happen and take place first. So ultimately, we pretty much hit the main point. I don't want to, drag this out as I usually do in my lessons. But you see things that's going over there in China, which, they had a recent situation that went on in Shanghai, China. Lockdowns that happened over there. And how strict they were also. And they also went into, in that lesson, going to how this pretty much was coming to America, man. Because these first lockdowns were nothing but, a test run, just to see how the people would react and see what more they could, what's the word looking for, advance on, for lack of better words, what they could do better. So it's only going to get even worse as Scripture going to Revelation 12 and 12. How they're going to come down with that great wrath, man, as we read in 2nd Ezra 15 and 17. Going to those lockdowns, martial law. You're seeing many people fighting amongst each other, killing each other like a food, rioting and protesting against the government. Times are only going to get worse, What's we're looking for? What's that one saying? Things will get worse before they get better. So once again, pretty much the main point, Lord, you're edified. I do want to give all praises on glory to Yahweh Shai by Shem Kakadash, the ones the apostles, and the elders, great millstone, teaching us the truth, peace, and blessings. To all like Israel, and Shalom. See you next one.